about their need to pray always and not to lose heart. But it raises a big question. If God grants justice to those who persist in prayer, why is there still so much injustice in the world? Surely many of the millions of victims of oppression and persecution have been praying for justice every single day. Many of us who aren't victims ourselves, but know about the horrors that exist out there, pray for it too. And yet the horrors continue. I've seen at least three possible explanations. The first one is that people just simply are not persistent enough. Another is that prayer may not lead to external changes so much as it leads to a relationship with God that helps a person to endure what happens to them. I've heard stories of enslaved people and Holocaust victims who were able to find some sort of inner peace. And then there's the God's timeline isn't like our timeline argument. At first glance, I have problems with all of these. First always sounds to me like blaming the victims, and I think it's used sometimes that way. You know, if your prayers aren't being answered, you just must not be praying hard enough. The second is just very hard for me to comprehend. And the third one kind of makes me think, well, so why bother? But the more I think about it and apply it to myself, I begin to see the truth in all these arguments or statements. I've been trying to be more persistent in my prayers for a better world. And it turns out that, at least for me, this is very difficult. It seems both presumptuous and futile at the same time. What could I possibly say to God that God hasn't already heard innumerable times? But then here's Jesus right in this parable telling me that this is the right thing to do. And yet still, I find that I get distracted and, you know, it's just hard. And I'm not sure exactly the words to use. And it's really easy to get discouraged. And if that's true for me, how much more true it must be for people who are actually victims of things like torture and enslavement. But I wonder if I can find some way to do this and to respond to the daily onslaught of horrors in the news with prayer instead of despair. If I might begin to see things differently. Maybe I'd start to see more ways that I could be part of the solution. Maybe some of that elusive inner peace would start to creep in. And I might even see a bigger picture where things are moving in the right direction, even if I won't live to see the final results. As usual, I don't know the answers, but this is what I think. We have absolutely nothing to lose by praying every day for the kind of world that we want. It can be done anytime, anywhere. It won't prevent us from doing anything, from taking action. It might even help us to do more. So all I can say is, with God's help, let's give it a try. Thank you. I guess I'm still on. Peter and I have been members of this church since 2001. And I can't begin to list all the names, all the ways that this community has enriched our lives. We've seen a lot of changes over the years. It's not exactly, St. Alban's is not exactly the same place it was in 2001 or in 2010. But you know that saying that so often is repeated without the critical last word? The more a thing changes, the more it stays the same thing. And there's some fundamental spirit at St. Alban's that's hasn't changed, despite all of the losses that we've experienced, without the changes through the changes in personnel and the financial ups and downs. It's a spirit of love and resilience And nothing illustrates it better for me than the way we've adapted to the pandemic and, not having a rector for these last almost 3 years. I think it's time for St. Albans to change again. And having been here all these years, I feel a lot of hope that we will rise to the challenges we face right now. Getting back to full-time in-person services, finding a new part-time rector, growing our congregation. We will all be called to contribute, and I believe we'll all find the means within ourselves to do it. I feel that because I've seen us do it before.
Thank you, Margaret. In this time when we are unable to gather in one place for worship, we continue to offer our time and our treasure to support St.